There's a certain type of person who walks into a room and instantly shifts the atmosphere without making a sound, without saying a word, without doing anything obvious. People look, people feel. Some are drawn in, others recoil, but they all sense it. Something unseen, something heavy, something powerful. It's not light, but it's not evil. It's something deeper, something older than language. It's the silent frequency of the dark chosen one. And if you're still watching this, it means you felt it too. In yourself, in your bones. In those moments where people stare at you like you just walked out of another world. You have a presence you never asked for, a weight you didn't choose, and a destiny you can't escape. You don't radiate like the typical spiritual archetype. You don't glow with love and light vibes or always speak in soft, comforting tones. You're not here to make people feel safe. You're here to make them feel, to stir them, to disturb what's false, to awaken what's been buried. And that means your energy doesn't always land gently. It lands like thunder, like a storm that's been circling for lifetimes. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to explain yourself. Your very existence is a vibration that challenges illusions, systems, and people's carefully constructed identities. But here's the thing, most people have no idea what to do with that kind of energy. They don't understand that what they feel when you walk into the room is not danger, but depth. Not threat, but truth. You don't fit into their boxes. You don't play the roles they expect. You're not a mirror reflecting who they think they are. You're a black mirror, revealing what they've tried to avoid. And that can be terrifying to someone who's built their life on masks. So the first sign is this: you make people feel things they didn't want to feel, even in silence. You trigger without intention. You expose without effort. You reveal without speaking. And it's not because you're trying to, it's because your energy demands truth. It vibrates at a frequency that doesn't tolerate pretense. And that frequency speaks louder than anything you could ever say. The second sign is the way you move through duality. You don't just acknowledge the light and shadow, you live both. You're the kind of person who can hold compassion in one hand and chaos in the other. You can sit with someone in their agony without flinching. You can see the darkest parts of yourself and not run from them. You've been through things most can't imagine. You've seen the underworld. You've kissed death. You've bled for your becoming. And because of that, your energy carries a certain gravity. You don't float. You sink. You anchor. You pull people down into themselves, into what's real, into what they've buried, into what they're afraid of. That's why people remember you. That's why they fear you. That's why they need you, even if they don't know how to say it. Here's a question most people never dare to ask. What if the reason you've always felt like an outsider isn't because something is wrong with you, but because you're carrying a frequency that doesn't belong to this current age of forgetting? What if your energy is a reminder of what we've lost, a kind of primal spiritual technology that doesn't fit in the sanitized format of modern spirituality? You don't radiate innocence, you radiate initiation. And that's the third sign. Your energy feels like a rite of passage. People meet you, and something inside them begins to shift. Old wounds surface. Hidden desires emerge. They start to question their own narratives. You don't even have to speak. It's just your presence. It's ancestral. It's cosmic. It's karmic. Because you're not just you, you're a culmination of everything you've ever survived. And people feel that, even if they can't name it. That's why your silence is loud. When you sit in stillness, it doesn't feel empty, it feels charged. Like something is watching. Like something is waiting to be seen. You don't have to prove your power. You've already earned it. Through fire, through failure, through falling and standing again. Every scar you carry, visible or invisible, is an access point for your energy. And the world can feel it, even if they can't explain it. Even if you can't. The fourth sign is your relationship with isolation. You don't belong in crowds. You don't crave constant connection. Not because you're antisocial, but because your energy is sacred. It needs space. It needs silence. You're not meant to be everywhere with everyone. You're designed to show up exactly where needed, often in the moments people least expect, and shift realities just by being there. That's the role of the dark chosen one, not to be popular, but to be precise. You're a spiritual scalpel, not a warm blanket. And yet the loneliness is real. You've probably questioned your path 1,000 times, wondered why you're so different, why you feel so much, why you can't just relax into normal life. But deep down, you know the truth. You didn't come here to blend in. You came here to break patterns. You didn't come here to be understood. You came here to initiate understanding in others. But that kind of mission requires you to carry weight most people will never see and radiate wisdom most people will never ask for. The fifth sign is your magnetism. It's not about beauty. It's not about charm. You could be dressed in rags, sitting in a corner, and people would still feel drawn to you, because your energy speaks directly to their subconscious. You're not speaking to their ego, you're speaking to their soul. That's why people open up to you without knowing why. That's why they confess things they've never told anyone. That's why they feel seen in your presence, even when you haven't said a word. You don't just observe, you penetrate. You see through. Yo sei into. And that gaze, that stillness, that silent awareness, it changes people. But that power comes with responsibility. The sixth sign is your ability to destroy illusions, both yours and others. You don't chase comfort, you chase clarity. You don't hold on to what no longer serves, even if it hurts. You're not afraid of death because you've died 1,000 times within yourself already. And that's why your energy can be disruptive. You don't just walk into rooms, you recalibrate them. You don't just meet people, you mirror them. And they either rise or run. The seventh sign is the one that can't be faked, finessed, or fabricated. You've earned your darkness. You walked through it. You didn't bypass it. You became it. And in doing so, you discovered something most people never will, that darkness, when honored, becomes depth. And depth is where the real power lies. Not in pretending to be light, but in embodying truth even when that truth is uncomfortable, inconvenient, or misunderstood. You don't have to speak to be felt. You don't have to perform to have impact. You are the living proof that silence can be thunder. Your energy is not loud. It's inevitable.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There is an irony that walks hand in hand with the journey of the dark chosen one. It's that you rarely see yourself as powerful until you've already changed people. The world reacts to you long before you understand why. You walk into spaces and people shift subtly. Some get nervous, others light up. Some avoid eye contact, others stare like they're looking at something they can't name. But you're just existing. You're just being. You don't feel special. You don't feel powerful. Most of the time you feel burdened, heavy, maybe even invisible. But that's the paradox. Your energy is never invisible, even when you feel like you are. Your power wears the mask of the ordinary. You don't walk around chanting mantras or dressing like a mystic in the desert. You blend in on the surface. You might have a job, pay bills, scroll your feed like everyone else. But beneath that mundane exterior, you carry a current, dense, electric, ancient. It's not what you do that causes people to sense you. It's what you are. You exist on a frequency that disrupts illusions, even when you don't try. That's why people often react to you in polarized ways. They either feel inexplicably drawn to you or deeply triggered. And most of them can't figure out why. Have you ever noticed how people project things onto you before you've even said a word? They assume you're intense or intimidating or mysterious. And you wonder, where is this coming from? You may even shrink yourself, soften your tone, dim your presence just to make others comfortable. But the truth is, they're not reacting to your personality. They're reacting to your field. Your presence carries information, ancient, intuitive, encoded truths that challenge what they've accepted as reality. And that's uncomfortable for people who are still asleep in their masks. This is why, before you even realize you're a dark chosen one, life has already started preparing you for it. You've been misunderstood since the beginning. Teachers didn't know what to do with you. Family thought you were too much. Friends came and went, often without explanation. You felt like you're always on the outside, observing, analyzing, feeling everything at once. But the truth is, you were never meant to blend in. Your isolation wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You were being energetically trained to hold a frequency that cannot be faked, bought, or taught. Let me ask you something most people are afraid to confront. What if your awkwardness in social spaces is actually your power trying to find a container in a world that doesn't yet understand it? What if your silence at the dinner table isn't shyness, but spiritual restraint? What if your discomfort in small talk is because your soul only speaks the language of depth? You see, the world conditions us to look for signs of power in the obvious, in titles, in charisma, in loud voices, in visibility. But your power moves like a shadow, like a whisper in a cathedral at midnight. It doesn't need to be seen to be felt. And that's what makes it sacred, endrade. Because true spiritual power doesn't scream. It radiates. Silently. Unapologetically. In a language only the soul can recognize. That's why people confess things to you they've never said out loud. That's why strangers stare at you like you're familiar. That's why you felt like you've lived 1,000 lives. Because you have. And all of those lives are still with you, layered into your aura, speaking through your energy. You're not just you. You're the culmination of a lineage, an echo of ancient paths. A soul who has walked through fire and chosen to return not to flaunt your scars, but to embody what they taught you. The mask of the ordinary is your camouflage. Not because you're hiding, but because your power is not meant to be casually consumed. It's sacred. It's precise. It's disruptive. It's evolutionary. And that means it often moves in silence, in shadows, in subtleties. You don't need to explain yourself to be real. You don't need to be validated to be valuable. Your power is not performance. It's presence. And presence, when rooted in truth, is the loudest thing in the room even when you're silent. The more you awaken to this, the more you realize you were never meant to announce yourself. You were meant to remember yourself. And in that remembering, the world begins to shift. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy made it inevitable. There's a war happening all the time, and most people have no idea it exists. It's not on battlefields. It's not between nations. It's not even visible to the eye. It's a war of energy, of frequency, of vibration. And if you radiate dark, chosen one energy, especially in silence, you've been in the middle of it for your entire life. Even if you couldn't name it, even if you thought it was just bad luck, or sensitive vibes, or misunderstandings, you felt the tension, the resistance, the sudden coldness from someone who was warm 5 seconds ago. The way someone's smile falters when they look into your eyes too long. The way people push you away without knowing why. It's not personal. It's energetic. You're not fighting people. You're triggering their shadows. Here's the truth most won't tell you. When you carry a deep integrated darkness, meaning you've faced your pain, your rage, your grief, your trauma, and you've not only survived it but transcended it, you become a living mirror to those who haven't. Your silence becomes a spotlight. Your stillness becomes a confrontation. You don't need to say a single word because your energy is already initiating a process in others. And the first stage of that process is discomfort. Discomfort because you remind them of everything they've buried. You remind them of the truth they've denied. You remind them of the fire they've never walked through. And instead of admiring your strength, they feel threatened by your presence. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're different. You faced the darkness they're still running from. You've embraced the parts of yourself they're still repressing. And that makes your energy disruptive to their illusion of peace. Now, this is where the unseen war intensifies. Because the projections come fast. People start to label you cold, arrogant, intimidating, weird, intense. They want to make sense of what they're feeling, but instead of looking inward, they point outward, at you. And if you don't know what's happening, you start to internalize it. You begin to question yourself. You start to shrink, to soften, to dim your light, to suppress your depth just to make others feel safe. But here's the hard truth. You were not born to make people feel safe. You were born to make them feel truth. And truth is rarely comfortable. So how do you protect yourself in a world that misreads your energy? How do you walk with open power without becoming hardened or bitter? It starts with this: discernment over defense. You don't need to build walls. You need to build filters. You don't need to shut down your heart. You need to sharpen your awareness. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not every space can hold your frequency. And that's okay. You're not here to be accessible to everyone. You're here to be available to the aligned. And alignment isn't about agreement, it's about resonance. Notice how your body feels around certain people. Trust what your gut tells you, even when your mind tries to rationalize it. Energy doesn't lie. People do. Second, you must ground yourself in your own truth. When someone projects onto you, pause, breathe, ask, is this mine or is this theirs? Learn to separate your energy from the energy of others. Spiritual hygiene isn't just about clearing your space with sage, it's about knowing who you are so deeply that nothing outside of you gets to define you. Your power grows in direct proportion to how well you know yourself. So know your darkness, know your light, know your story, know your scars, and wear them like armor, not to fight, but to stand firm in who you are. Third, remember that triggering someone is not the same as harming them. We live in a culture that avoids discomfort at all costs, but you were made to walk into discomfort and transmute it. And sometimes your energy is the catalyst someone needs to break free from their own illusion. You might not see it in the moment, you might never see it, but trust that your presence is doing something bigger than your ego can comprehend. You're not here to be liked, you're here to be real. And realness shakes cages. But don't let that calling harden you. Don't let the misinterpretations make you bitter. That's the trap. That's how the unseen war wins, by convincing you to shut down your heart in the name of protection. Don't fall for it. Stay open. Stay wild. Stay soft. Let your silence be sharp. Let your stillness be strong. But never stop feeling. That's your real power, not just the darkness you've survived, but the love you've reclaimed through it all. Love that doesn't need to be loud. Love that doesn't need to prove. Love that just is. The world is going through a massive unraveling right now. Structures are crumbling. Truths are rising. And the dark chosen ones are being called not to fight with swords, but to stand like mountains, to hold frequency, to radiate presence, to be the paradox that wakes others up. And that's not a job for the faint-hearted. That's a soul contract etched in fire, and you accepted it, in this life, in others. You said yes to being the one who walks alone so that others can remember they're not. So next time someone flinches at your silence or projects their fear onto your presence, don't shrink, smile. You've just touched the edge of their awakening. There comes a moment in every dark chosen one's journey when the weight of their story begins to feel less like a curse and more like a crown. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come through external validation or applause. It arrives in silence, often after years of pain, reflection, and internal war. You begin to understand that what you once tried to hide, what you were taught to be ashamed of, is the very thing that makes you sacred. The darkness you carry is not a flaw. It's a frequency, a signature, a mark of the ancient ones who walked before you. And now finally you realize you are not broken. You are coded. You see, this world has trained us to fear the dark, to associate it with evil, with danger, with something to overcome or cast out. But that's a lie, a system of control designed to keep you disconnected from your own power. Because darkness isn't the absence of light, it's the womb of it. It's the place where stars are born, where souls are forged, where truth is stripped bare and ego is dissolved. The darkness you've walked through wasn't punishment. It was initiation. You weren't being destroyed. You were being refined. And those who haven't walked through that kind of fire will never understand what it's like to carry it, to live with invisible weight, to move through the world with ancient codes running through your veins. You've lived 1,000 lifetimes in one. You've died to your old self more times than you can count, and through it all, you've risen not with glittering wings, but with scarred hands and clear eyes. You've become the kind of person who doesn't need to speak to be heard, because your energy remembers. That's what makes you ancient, not your age, not your knowledge, but your remembering. You remember what others have forgotten. You remember pain not as punishment, but as portal. You remember silence not as absence, but as power. You remember that love is not always soft, it is sometimes fierce, sometimes wild, sometimes forged in darkness. And that is why you radiate what others cannot fake. You carry the truth of both realms. But here's what most people never tell you. Your darkness is not meant to be healed away. It's meant to be honored. It's not a phase to transcend, it's a force to integrate. And when you do, you become unstoppable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. You've stopped running from your shadows. You've stopped apologizing for your depth. You've stopped diluting your essence to soothe the discomfort of others. You were never meant to be palatable. You were meant to be primordial. You were never meant to be everyone's friend. You were meant to be their reminder, a walking portal, a living mirror, a breathing storm of sacred memory. That's why people can't forget you, even if they try. That's why your silence lingers in rooms long after you've left. That's why your presence feels like both a warning and a blessing, because it is. You are the return of the Ancient One. A soul that chose to come back not to fit in, but to wake up the sleeping, to carry the codes of chaos and creation, to walk with both shadow and light, not as opposites but as siblings. You are the bridge between what was and what must be. And that bridge is built not with perfection, but with presence. So wear your darkness with pride, not arrogance but reverence. Let it be known that you have walked through hell and returned with your heart intact. Let it be seen that you have been broken and still chose to love. Let it be felt that your silence is not emptiness, it's eternity. This is your time. Not to become something new, but to remember who you've always been. A keeper of the old ways, a carrier of the unseen. A soul forged in fire, here to ignite others not with noise, but with truth. And the truth is simple. You were never too much. You were just meant for more.